Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Reign of Troy Radio, episode 455, coming to you on Wednesday, October 19th. It is the RoTies episode. Yes, the RoTies are back. It is the midseason RoTies. We're going to look back at the first half of the 2022 USC football season and talk about our awards, our picks, our superlatives for the first half. And walk through the list of a bunch of fun awards that we've put together and so much more here on this episode, including listening to your questions as well. You have a say on this podcast, just like we do. As always, I'm your host, Michael Castillo, journal of my co-host here in the Reign of Troy studio, Alicia Artola.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. We are back for the RoTies. We haven't done the RoTies in forever. It's if you're new to the whole Rot Radio thing. The RoTies, the Reign of Troy Awards, RoTies.
Yeah, they're very prestigious awards that we give out when we feel like it to the players that we feel like.
Yeah.
So you never know when they're going to come.
They are, I wouldn't say annual awards. They are, usually we do them. Usually
Semi-annual?
Semi-annual is like twice a year, right?
Is it? Oh.
I think so.
I thought that was biannual, or is that once every 2 years?
I don't know. Think of like a semi-annual sale.
Yeah, maybe. I
Semi-final means there's two of them.
That's true. So a randomly annual award that we do or don't give out in the postseason or the mid-season or whatever we have time for it.
I don't know. Either way, we are back here live on YouTube. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Reign of Troy Radio live here on YouTube. If you're joining us, be sure to subscribe and like the stream as well. It helps grow the show for the future. And if you're new to us over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Stitcher, wherever you listen to us, be sure to subscribe as well. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review. 5 stars helps us grow the show. Glenn over on the YouTube chat says, semi-annual means 2 times a year and biannual means every other year.
And Hector in the chat also pointed out that the RoTies may come around every year unless Clay Helton is in his 10th year because, I think we weren't in a very celebratory mood for the last couple of years. So.
This is true. I always have a weird thing about like the bi-blank, like bi-weekly.
So that's once every 2 weeks.
It's once every 2
other
weeks,
week.
But like bi-monthly can mean
twice a month.
Or like every other month.
Yeah. It sounds like we're all just using these all wrong all the time.
Yeah, like it's very confusing.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the date of next Sunday?
October 30th.
No, it's the 31st.
No, because Halloween is on Monday.
Wait. Yeah, sorry. October 30th.
Yeah.
Is next Sunday.
Yes.
But some people will tell you that next Sunday is the 23rd. Like, no, that's not true. That's not.
No, because then
that's this Sunday.
The next Sunday is the 23rd. Yes. Next Sunday is the 30th.
Right. This
Sunday is the 23rd.
Is the 23rd.
Yeah.
Next Sunday, the 30th. Last Sunday, the 16th.
Yeah. Generally agree.
Yeah. Exactly. Anyways, welcome to the show as always. Let's get into the news. We got a little bit of it to discuss. We start with some injury updates. USC getting a couple of big injury updates on the Biletnikoff winner from last year, Jordan Addison, and Eric Gentry at linebacker as well. This was the big thing out of the Utah game. Both those guys left the game early. Addison, a big contributor on offense. Gentry, a huge contributor on defense, not just because he's a huge dude, like 6'6". But both of them, key players. SC needs them in the lineup, right? Well, according to our friend Keely Orr of USC football, Lincoln Riley, quote, Lincoln Riley on Jordan Addison and Eric Gentry health status. Quotes, they'll be day-to-day. Don't think it's anything long-term for either of them.
Well, that is outstanding news. That is definitely not what I was expecting. I was expecting USC to get lucky by having one of them not be out for the season or, months potentially. So listing them day to day, very, very good. The only thing here that causes me to sit back and go, is Lincoln Riley doesn't really give us a lot of information on the injuries, and he's not very clear about them. So to me, day to day just means that they aren't season ending, which again, very, very, very good news. But day to day also means a million things. Like Dak Prescott has been day to day for 4 weeks with that thumb injury. So there's a difference between day to day and can play in the next game. The good news for USC is that they are on the bye week this week. So you can literally just sit those guys and let them rest up. You get Arizona the week after, which we don't want to take Arizona lightly, as we've said before on this podcast, but you shouldn't need either of those players to beat Arizona in the end. And then you've got, in whatever order it goes in, because I have not stuck this in my brain yet, you've got Colorado and Cal. And those are not games that you have to have both of those guys. Obviously, you want them back, but they're not you cannot win without those guys. So USC has 4 weeks to get these guys from day to day to playing. And if that means that we don't see them against Arizona, that's fine. If we don't see them against Cal or Colorado, I would prefer to have them back by that point, but it's also not the end of the world. So if they were going to get injured at any point this season, getting injured at Utah with the bye week and then fortunate weeks after that, I think that's, to me, that worked out pretty well for USC.
Yeah, I would expect we'll get our answer for sure next week against Arizona. Not that I'm necessarily doubting Lincoln Riley in this sense, but he hasn't been completely forthright with a lot of the injury stuff. But I don't think there's any reason to keep this one completely hidden under wraps. I think day to day is the important thing, because that means they're not out for the season, right? And that's the important thing for SC more than anything. We'll see what their participation is next week for the Arizona game. Then after that, it's Cal and then Colorado, according to our pal Kenny, who is in the chat here on YouTube as always. So
one of these days I'll remember which way that goes.
It's alphabetical order. Cal, then Colorado. There you go.
Oh, there we go. We fixed it. Arizona, Cal, Colorado.
Yeah. And plus, that means that reminds me, SC does have an extra day to prepare for UCLA.
Wait, it's UCLA before Notre Dame. Notre Dame is at the end of the season. Yeah. So
yes.
We almost got the full rest of the slate in alphabetical, but dang those Irish.
Yeah. Well, actually, if UCLA is University of California, Los Angeles, and Notre Dame is University of Notre Dame. So, it is
California, Los Angeles. Yeah. But then the University of Colorado would be ahead of University of California and Los Angeles.
We could just ignore that part.
Okay.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah. Play along.
Yeah, whatever.
Other news, there is some, not only is this the mid-season awards episode where we're doing the mid-season RoTies, but mid-season content is out there everywhere. And there's mid-season All-American teams out there. The AP has included Tuli Tuipulotu as a defensive lineman on the AP mid-season All-American team, and CBS has put out their team with Andrew Voorhees on the offensive line. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, very good for both of those guys. I think well-deserved for both of them. It's nice to see Andrew Voorhees get the credit that PFF was the only one that was giving him anything.
Yeah.
And now he's starting to get paid attention to by the other sort of the bigger media selectors. So good for him. I think Tuli is an easy pick for these midseason All-American teams. He's just been so productive for USC. The trick now for both of those guys, but for particularly Tuipulotu, is to carry through that first half of the season performance into the second half to lock in a place on the All-American wall. Because I think Tuli just needs to, he doesn't need to match his production from the start of the season, but he just needs to continue being productive and continue getting those sacks and tackles for loss. And he's going to have opportunities. Like we said, the next 3 weeks are weeks where the competition will not be as high as it has been over the last couple of weeks. So opportunities abound for guys like Tuli to really make their mark and set themselves up for a big end of the season against rivalry teams and chances to write their names in the history books.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating last 5 games of the regular season, and then potentially 2 more for the Trojans. One more, which you would think if they make the Pac-12 championship game, that would affect things like All-American lists. Of course, as we talk about RoTies, we'll do the full RoTies episode in January, presumably, if we get there, if we
if we make it to January,
make the RoTies here.
Yeah.
So yeah, potentially up to 14 games USC could play. I mean, I guess 15. You never know.
You never know.
You never know. Let's start with the RoTies. What are the RoTies again? The Reign of Troy Awards that we put together, I think, for the first time way back in like 2014, first time that we ever did the RoTies. And since then, they are awards named after various USC things. And we always enjoy them. We've had back since 2014, but hey, they're back here. We are.
We have fun with them
on YouTube. We'll start with the first one. It is the Uchenna Nwosu Memorial RoTie for the most improved player of the first half.
And wouldn't you know?
The way we're going to do this is we're going to pick our winners for this, but we ended up picking the same people. So we're just going to write it out. We have unanimous picks. We have unanimous picks. So here we go. The first winner of the first RoTie, the Uchenna Nwosu Memorial RoTie for the most improved player of the first half, is Tuli Tuipulotu.
Yeah, speak of the devil. He has been a devil for opposing offensive fronts all year. And to me, it's very fitting that he is the Uchenna Nwosu of this season because, again, it's a player who was good before, but they took their game to a whole other level and really an All-American level at a certain point. And that's what Tuli has been. He was good in previous years, a lot of potential in previous years.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's tied for first in FBS in sacks and second in FBS for tackles for loss. So he's absolutely taken that step that Uchenna Nwosu did. And if he finishes out the rest of the season, he's going to be on the All-American wall like Uchenna Nwosu is.
Yeah, and he is, him being the leader tied for the national lead in sacks is crazy, given, everything. And I wouldn't have sort of pegged him as having the better career than his brother, given that as recruits, his brother was such a big deal in comparison between the two. We've talked about this before, that when Marlon Tuipulotu came to SC, it was a huge deal. SC flipping him from Washington. And it's not that Marlon didn't have a great career. He was great as a Trojan, but Tuli has just taken it to a different level. And we've talked about it before, who was going to be that guy to take the next step. Uchenna Nwosu was one of those guys, took the next step to an All-American level. Talanoa Hufanga took another step, got himself to an All-American level. Who is going to be that guy on the defense this year? We talked about it potentially being Kalen Bullock. Right now, it's definitely Tuipulotu, absolutely, and tied for first in sacks with Jose Ramirez. No, not the Guardians guy, but ECU, East Carolina's Jose Ramirez was 7 sacks, second in the country in tackles for loss at 12.5. Didn't have anything against Utah, but even still in the top of those leaderboards. If we had to pick sort of like an honorable mention or a runner-up to this, who would you take on this list?
Well, I considered Sayre Wright because he just was not in line for any playing time.
Yeah.
I think he was the surprise of the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was named the starter, it was like, oh, wait, for real? Like, he's not just going to be about acting, and he's going to actually take his craft seriously on the football field and earn a starting job. And part of me still thought, like, yeah, he'll be the starter now, but this still has a long way to go to shuffle up the cornerback pecking order. But he's stayed there. He's retained his spot. And actually, he's been very quiet all season in the way that you want a corner to be quiet. I mean, the less often you have to think about a corner, probably the better job he's doing. And I haven't had to think about Sayre Wright all that much. So yeah, I think he's done a hell of a job to elevate himself into a starting role and then to keep it.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. It's hard for me to name anyone else, really, given that so many of the other guys are really in their spot for the first time or are competing at a level that we've seen before. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say Andrew Voorhees because Andrew Voorhees had a great season last year, too.
Yeah.
So I don't think that he'd be most improved. And then your other guys are dudes that came in on a transfer. And so it'd be weird to say Solomon Byrd is the most improved, which leads us into talking about the new guys. The Loafer Tatupu Memorial RoTie for the best newcomer of the first half. Alicia, who is it?
My guy, Travis Dye.
Yeah, the former Oregon Duck running back takes the cake for the Loafer Tatupu Memorial RoTie. So many options here. We could have gone Caleb Williams. We could have gone Mario Williams. We could have gone Eric Gentry. We could have gone Solomon Byrd.
Jordan Addison.
Yeah. So many
Mekhi Blackman.
Mekhi Blackman. It ultimately ends up being Travis Dye, USC's leading rusher. 647 yards on 101 carries, 7 touchdowns thus far. Why does he get the pick for you for best newcomer?
Well, I think I have to give him a lot of credit. He's already a fan favorite, and that's funny to me because I thought it would be harder to sort of come around on the Pac-12 transfers than the ones that came from other programs that we're just not as familiar with. But Travis Dye came in and he just walked straight into the locker room and embraced being a Trojan, and his teammates embraced him and he embraced leadership and has been an absolute pro and also just a great leader and great guy on this team. His ability on the field is even better than I thought it would be. I knew he was a good rusher, but he was sort of generic in my mind because I just didn't watch Oregon enough to sort of be familiar with his game, in the words of Shaq. But he's converted practically every short yardage situation that he's been handed the ball off in. He has such great vision. His vision is so excellent that the offensive line is opening up holes, and he has not missed a one, to my view. He's reliable in pass blocking. He takes pass blocking very seriously. He's reliable as a pass catcher. He's just all over the field for USC in that run game. He makes that run game very, very comfortable to go to, despite all of the weapons that USC has in the passing game. I just think he's sort of weirdly in 7 weeks made himself, or 6 weeks, 6 months, I guess, made himself like a USC legend already in a weird way. It's just spectacular.
Yeah, it feels like he's been here the whole time.
Yeah.
In a weird way, he feels like a fully formed Vi Malepeai.
Yeah.
And like he's what you would have hoped Vi Malepeai could have ultimately evolved into.
Yeah.
And that's like nothing away from Vi, but like Travis Dye is just like the
another level,
the most complete version of what that type of player could be, right? And yeah, he feels like he's been here forever because we've seen similar type of guys, but just on the peak of that, and he's fit in perfectly. You talk about the other options that this could have been, and it could have been anyone. Dave in the chat says newcomer includes just about everyone on the team. Yeah, it could have been anyone. It could have been literally anybody. But I like that we're honoring Travis Dye here because somebody on this list, somebody is going to get another RoTie.
Yeah.
Another newcomer, you can probably guess.
Yeah.
Is going to get a RoTie, but Travis Dye deserves some sort of recognition for the great start that he's had, averaging just about 100 yards a game thus far, and gone over 100 4 different times in the front seven, and probably should have had more 100-yard games, in the games that he didn't go 100 yards.
Well, it feels very much like the games where he didn't get 100 yards were not because of anything he did. He just, if he'd gotten the ball a few more times, he would have gotten there. It would have just been routine for him.
Yeah, case in point, the Utah game.
Yes.
Yeah. So we move on to the next RoTie number 3 of the day. We're calling this the Cardinal Heart RoTie. But realistically, this is the Clay Helton Survivor Award. This is the Valiant veteran, or the first half award given to the returning player who has proven they made the correct decision to stay at USC. Who is that for you? I think there's one answer that you came up with, and I couldn't find a better one, so we're riding with it.
It's Josh Follow.
Yeah.
Josh Follow, a player who I legitimately thought when we were looking at like who's going to be on this roster next year, I wasn't even factoring him in because I figured one, he'll retire from football, or two, he'll transfer, or just sort of not be a factor. And instead, he's the starting tight end, and he's out there catching touchdown passes for USC against Utah. And, you know, Shuck and Spratling on Twitter posted a really great clip of that touchdown for Jordan Addison where Josh Follow blocks 3 dudes. Like, Jordan Addison gets into the end zone because Josh Follow blocks 3 different Utes on Jordan Addison's way to the end zone. He is completely turned his career around in the sense that he's healthy for the first time, like ever. He's out there proving himself as a pass blocker, which was always the question mark for him. And he's also now getting the rewards of being on the field and having the ball thrown his way as a pass catcher and making, by the way, a really, really great catch for, I believe it was his first one. Second one, a little bit more routine, but he can be a weapon for USC in the red zone. And it's really nice to see him emerge as a guy who is the definition of stick it out, because he had probably 4 different off seasons where he could have easily made the decision to transfer and didn't.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where going into this season, going into last season, it was having to force yourself to remember that he was still on the team.
Yeah.
But he's still there, and he, for all intents and purposes, is USC's starting tight end at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Lake McCree has dealt with some health stuff, and Malcolm Epps has had his moments and caught a couple of touchdowns, but so is Josh Follow in the last 2 games. He got 2 touchdowns against Utah, a big moment there, but really, more than anything, to speak to this award, it's the guy who stuck around, who still is making an impact, and that's Josh Follow, because he's been here for the long haul, and he's finally getting something that he deserved, and a punctuation on his career when it was very easy that you could sit here and say that the biggest part of his career was as a freshman. He in the Pac-12 championship game caught the 4th down play, like to seal it, like that was looking like to be
that was his career highlight.
Yeah, his career highlight. Now you can add a couple touchdowns against Utah there. Hector in the chat says happy to see him contribute this year. Yeah, absolutely. It is a blast to see Josh Follow, the Sacramento guy, back on the field for the Trojans. Speaking of big moments and contributors you wouldn't expect, let's go to the Andre Hadari Memorial RoTie for the moment of glory of the first half. Alicia, there is only one potential thing that could be the moment of glory here. It's the kneel-on nudge. It's the play you'll remember forever from the first half against Oregon State. The Trojans down to their final play, 4th down. Caleb Williams scrambling at midfield. He's not going to make the first down marker. And then there's Brett Nealon pushing him over the line, over the first down marker, along with a slew of other Trojans offensive linemen. It's what ultimately sets up the Caleb Williams touchdown to Jordan Addison at the end of the game. SC wins 17-13. If they don't pull that one out with the miracle that was the Nealon nudge, they're 5-2 right now. Mm-hmm. And for all intents and purposes, almost eliminated from the Pac-12 championship game. But no, they're there. SC pulls that one out with the Nealon nudge. And I go back to the Notre Dame game of 2005. So many people call it the Bush Push game. For me, it was always the 4th and 9 game. Mm-hmm. Because that's the moment that needed to happen for the Bush Push to exist. The Nealon nudge needed to happen before a Caleb Williams touchdown pass to Jordan Addison could exist. So the Nealon nudge, the moment of glory.
Yeah, there have been some outstanding plays this season, but the memorable one is definitely the Nealon nudge.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a good name too that always helps.
Yeah, shout out to Matt Ramirez on Twitter for naming
coming
that.
up with that one. But yeah, and it's speaking of more guys who have been here for the long haul and have seen their ups and downs in this program, and things are paying off for them. You look across that offensive line, and those guys all could have left as well at a certain point. Like, I want to, I'll shout out Justin Dietich too, because he fought to even get on the field for a long time, and now he's a team captain, and now he's contributing. And the Nealon nudge to me was just the personification of an offensive line that has been beleaguered at times. They've had millions of different coaches, and sticking it out, and then getting your moment, and then being there for your moment. That's when you get the Nealon nudge. And it's not often that offensive linemen get those moments. So
yeah, that's the coolest part too. And it's not just an offensive lineman like getting the weird trick play touchdown too. Like this was truly a hustle
football play.
Yeah, truly a hustle play from an offensive lineman. You love to see that. You love to see a guy make himself have a key moment and play a big role like Brett Nealon did there. Let's move to the next one. It is the Jail Mary remembrance, Roddy, for the epic blunder of the first half. Basically, the inverse of the moment of glory of the first half. The epic blunder. And this is probably, of all of them, the toughest one to pick. And I think that's a testament to how good of a first half SC has had at the beginning of the Lincoln Riley era, that it was hard to come up with anything.
We're having to nitpick here.
I struggled to come up with anything. You wrote yours in here with the question mark, and I guess that does make the one that makes the most sense. So we'll go with that one. And it's Lincoln Riley not calling a timeout early enough in the Utah game, not spending one more timeout to have about 20 more seconds, 20, 30 more seconds, and one fewer timeout in the end of the game to potentially win it. That's the epic blunder. Like, if that's the epic blunder, a decision that could have gone either way, and yeah, in hindsight, he probably should have made. But like, if that's the epic blunder, I think that speaks to how good your first half is. Right?
It doesn't feel like an epic blunder. It feels like that's like a 60-40 decision that maybe you should have just taken your timeouts. But it's not like if you had taken your timeouts, you definitely would have won the game. Like,
right.
And it's not like how could you not take your timeouts? Like, I think there's an argument for keeping your timeouts.
Not
like
Nathaniel Hackett.
No, absolutely not at Nathaniel Hackett level. I would feel much more comfortable giving this award to the referees during the Utah game. The blunder of calling those roughing the passer calls, but we
could just give the referees for that game in general. Like the
because the game was bad.
Existence of all of that.
Not even just the USC calls, but like all of it. It was
the timing things, the 8 million reviews.
The whistle at the end,
yes.
All of it. Yeah, can we just give them that award?
Let's do that. Let's take this away from Lincoln Riley. And we're giving this to the Pac-12 officials for just truly calling a heinous game.
Yes.
On all sides.
Yes.
And one that was a struggle to watch. I think that as a nonpartisan person, if you were watching the game on Saturday, it would have been absolutely awful.
Yeah. Yeah, an otherwise epic game that Pac-12 refs got to ruin. Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next one, a little bit of a cheerier one. The Dylan McCullough Memorial Roddy for the top coach of the first half. Doesn't necessarily have to be a newbie like Dylan McCullough was way back in 2017 when he was USC's running backs coach, but someone who has made a big impact as a coach thus far this season. Mind you, most of USC's staff, with the exception of Coach Williams over in the secondary, is still a newbie. So odds are it would be a newbie, and it is. Who is it?
I've got Sean Nua, the defensive line coach. I think that you can obviously criticize this defensive line for the run defense, although I think the linebackers are playing a role in that as well. To me, Sean Nua is working with the most limited crew, the one that had to take every transfer they could possibly take from anywhere that they could possibly take just to fill bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And he's turned them into a unit that's, at the top of the charts for national sacks, for tackles for loss. He has an All-American that he has unlocked in Tuli Tuipulotu. He's been able to turn to said transfers like Solomon Byrd and Tyrone Taleni and to get them on the field and to get them contributing for USC. I just think he's done an excellent job. The level of difficulty there to get that unit up to form is so hard, and I think he's just knocked it out of the park so far. I look very much forward to what he can do as he continues to build that unit through recruiting and transfers and everything like that, because the start so far has been very encouraging.
Yeah, SC, like we've talked about before, at one point it led the nation in sacks. I'm pulling up the number right now. SC currently 4th in sacks behind Liberty, Bowling Green, Old Dominion, and tied with Michigan, where Sean Nua came from last year, was Michigan. SC 24 sacks so far this year. Last year in the entire season, 21 games, had 21. 21 last year. SC this year, 24 through essentially 6 games, because they had none in the Utah game. So far this year, USC has 4, 5, 5, 0, 5, 5, 0.
Yeah.
So SC either has 0 or a big number.
Big number, yeah.
Last year, if you remember, not completely dissimilar. SC had 0, 0, 3, 0, 5, 2, 1, 5, 0, 1, 1, 3.
So it's like
plenty more
inverse.
zeros over there. Yeah. Almost like you're reading binary.
And Dave in the chat is saying that he would have voted for the defensive backfield coach, which I guess we would either give it to oh my gosh, Dante Williams or the safeties. The safeties coach is
Alex Grinch.
Alex Grinch, yeah. So you would give it to one of them, I suppose. I guess my counter to that, and I did think about awarding it to Williams because the corners have been very good. The counter is that, the D-line didn't get any sacks against Utah, but also the secondary gave up 200 yards to a tight end. So, it's levels. I think the level of difficulty for the
tight end's difficult because it's not just on it.
Well, because again, what are the linebackers doing? We're going to talk about that in a second too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Dante Williams absolutely deserves a lot of credit too. He's someone who could have left with his tail between his legs after last year, after not getting the job. Ed Orgeron absolutely quit on this team when he didn't get the job. Whined about it, took his ball, and went home, and quit on the team before a bowl game. Dante Williams could have done that. He did not do that. He stuck around to the point where he's still on the coaching staff, and he's not only still on the coaching staff, but getting the most in now. This is year 3 for him. He's getting more now than he has in his time at all since being in SC the first couple of years. So,
well, these are. This is the argument, right, for withholding judgment on coaches until year 2 or 3, because these are his dudes. These are the guys he's recruited.
Yeah, and
we're seeing that he's developing them. Not only did he recruit Sierra Wright, he's got him playing at a starter level, and he inherited Mekhi Blackman, and he's trusting him, and he's giving there for him. But Jalen Smith has moved up into a starting role. I would still like to see, and these are the safeties where you look at Alex Grinch, but I want to see more from Kalen Bullock and Max Williams personally. But that secondary is doing their job, and they're getting interceptions and they're causing havoc, and they're taking care of business.
With Sierra Wright, we always knew it was going to happen because we know that he grows up to be LeBron James. So, come on. Yeah. Moving on to the next award. Let's go to the 7th RoTie of the episode. We're talking the Wild Bunch Memorial RoTie for the top unit of the first half. The top unit, we're talking about the top unit, not necessarily the big unit, Randy Johnson. famed Roski School of Fine Arts grad, Randy Johnson, of course. One of two major athletes I can think of that was a Roski School of Fine Arts grad, along with Tom Barinovich. The more you know. Anyways, this one is a difficult one to put together. I think you can make a case that USC's best unit could be the secondary. You can make a case that it could be the defensive line, like you talked about with Sean Nua. You can make the case that it's the running backs. But ultimately, we go with the wide receivers. Case in point, it's a rebuild wide receiving core that needed a bunch of remodeling after all those guys that SC has had in past years, Drake London and Amon-Ra and Tyler Vaughns and all those dudes. And here we go, Michael Pittman, and those guys are all gone. SC needs to replace them with something. They go out and get Jordan Addison, the Biletnikoff winner, and he's looked great, leads the Trojans in receiving. Mario Williams comes with Caleb Williams from Oklahoma, and he looks great. I was telling you today off air, I said, who is USC's best receiver? And you said it's Jordan Addison. I said, if you did not know that Jordan Addison was the Biletnikoff winner from last year, like you just didn't know that information, would you still say it's Jordan Addison? Because I think Mario Williams might be performing at a higher level right now. But either way, the chance that you can just say that speaks to the level of how good these guys are playing, right?
Yes. And one of the things that I really like about this wide receiver unit is that there is a balance to it. Obviously, you have your hierarchy with Jordan Addison and Mario Williams playing at that high level. You're getting game-by-game contributions from Brendan Rice, from Taj Washington. They're trying to get Terrell Bynum involved when he's healthy. We're seeing Kyle Ford, Michael Jackson III.
Yeah.
We're digging down into Kyron Hudson has emerged as a guy that you can also rely on. They are digging down 8 deep in this receiving core, and guys are making plays and being reliable and taking their chances when they're on the field. So I agree that I think you could easily make an argument for the secondary. You could make an argument for the offensive line, even given their run blocking and where they rank nationally. Dave in the chat says, without a doubt, quarterback. We're going to talk about that later. I'm just not going to refer to the quarterback as a unit.
Yeah.
So yeah. But when
unless it is Randy Johnson himself back there, maybe Dante Culpepper would be a unit back there.
Unless USC was had 3 different quarterbacks playing games and all playing at a high level, we're just going to save that for later. But to me, the wide receivers have been very, very reliable, even when you're looking at the second line of attack. So really happy with them, especially because again, you are bringing in a new quarterback. Guys from all over the place. They have to build chemistry with Caleb Williams really quickly. The guys who are already here had to build chemistry with a new quarterback. There's just a lot going on for that unit. And I think they've clearly been what USC's needed.
Yeah, and you're talking about all the production SC has gotten out of those receivers. The crazy thing is, you look at the numbers, it's not nearly as much as it could be. And I still think there's a lot of production that they just haven't gotten out of those guys yet. Jordan Addison leads the team with 39 catches through 7 games. You look at those numbers, those are pedestrian numbers compared to what Drake London had a year ago.
But that's good.
But yes, that's good. That's absolutely good because there's more distribution.
Yeah, and
there's less forcing these guys to be a superstar at every turn, and that's a good thing. And that's what's great is I think that Brendan Rice has looked really good. And the crazy thing is he's only had 16 catches. There is absolutely more to come from Brendan Rice. We have not seen the best of Brendan Rice. I don't think we've seen the best of Mario Williams yet. So there's still a lot that SC can get out of those guys. We can see way more from the tight ends as well. And there's a lot of opportunity for that unit, and even still they're performing at a really high level.
Yeah.
Let's flip it over though, talk about the inverse of this. and the Bob Connolly Memorial Roddy for the underperforming units of the first half.
I think the fans know what we're going to say.
I think it could be either one of these. It could be one of two units, but there's one unit that can't make this for me. I think you can make an argument it's the offensive line because of the lapses in pass protection.
Yeah.
But when SC has been so good at run blocking, I don't think we can fully put that there. This is the linebackers for me. It's the linebackers have been the most underperforming unit of the first half. And for me, it's Shane Lee as a liability in pass coverage, first and foremost. Secondly, while Eric Gentry has been a revelation overall, the linebackers are the one unit that has yet to show flashes of elite play in any specific aspect. The defensive line has struggled against the run, but they're among the national sack leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
The DBs, yes, they gave up a bunch of yards to Utah, but they're among the interception leaders, and they force turnovers more than anybody else. The offensive line struggles in pass protection, but they're elite in run blocking. All these other units are doing something at a very high level. We've yet to see the linebackers perform at a high level outside of a few big plays that Eric Gentry has had and a pick six that Shane Lee had against Rice. We've yet to see the linebackers really consistently be a force for the Trojans.
And Eric Gentry even is still a work in progress. Like, I think we still all agree that Eric Gentry needs to bulk up and become more of a powerful playmaker in the middle there. It's just that you can see where his potential lies and where he can end up going, and that gives you a lot of hope. But when he's not on the field, it's just like you're sort of looking around going like, well, who's going to make the play? Who's going to make the play? And I'll give a shout out to Tuasivi Nomura. I like what he's out there doing when he's out there, because he's noticeable to a point. But like, I feel like too often the linebackers are passengers in this defense, and you need your linebackers to be a lot more than passengers. So there's still a lot of work to do in both recruiting, transfers, and development, because this is one of the things we're going to continue to talk about as we look ahead to the second half of the season. And we've mentioned on previous episodes, like, okay, we're not all that impressed with what we're seeing from the linebackers, whether we're talking about Shane Lee or Raylan Goforth. There are guys behind who we would like to see more of, and can they earn their reps? Can they earn their spot? Tuasivi Nomura is earning his reps. Need to see, maybe you see Rajon Davis, maybe you see Chris Thompson, the safety who converted to linebacker. Like, when are we going to potentially start seeing guys? Is there someone hidden on this depth chart who can make that difference, or does USC needs to go out and get somebody else? And yes, Glenn in the chat and I think Dave in the chat also pointing
Hector
out,
too, yeah.
And Hector, special teams was an honorable mention for this. It's just they've been less of a factor, I guess, for me.
This is not a fair commentary, but I think the special teams has been very easy to overlook when they haven't had that really epically bad moment yet.
Yeah.
Like, the special teams hasn't been good.
And they've been better in the last couple of weeks, to their credit.
And they've been better, but like, they haven't given up the touchdown yet.
They're not a strength.
And mind you, they shouldn't have to give up the touchdown for us to say that they've been not great.
Yeah.
So yes, the special teams, the return game has not been good at all. One of the best returns that they had all season came at the end of the Utah game, and it ended up being called back for the penalty of Brendan Rice. So that was a key moment where they could have used a huge return. And it didn't happen. So yeah, the special teams surely would be a candidate for the Bob Connolly Memorial Roddy for underperforming unit of the first half. Let's go to the penultimate Roddy to discuss. The Soma Vanuku unsung hero of the first half. This one, of course, a difficult one to put together because then there's a few options of guys who could make this list. It could be Eric Gentry. I think he'd be someone who could be on this. Does he count as unsung? I think is a question mark. It could be him. It could be Mekhi Blackman. It could be any of the offensive linemen. But ultimately, we go with who?
Taj Washington.
Yeah, 17 catches, 214 yards, no TDs yet, but it feels like he's due for one.
Yeah, I liked Taj for this award because he truly is unsung, and in the chat, Dave the Lesser is saying Solomon Byrd. I think we considered a lot of other names
Bird's a good pick
that you could put out there, but I feel like we have sung for them at some point. Like some of these guys are getting this, like Ogle family says Travis Dye. Like some people may be unsunging Travis Dye, but I have been singing, from the rooftops for Travis Dye. Yeah. So like it doesn't quite fit for me. What I want to highlight Taj Washington for is that, number one, he's come up with some really clutch catches for USC. When he's on the field, he's taking his opportunities. Number two, Dennis Simmons, the wide receiver coach, loves having him on the field because he's going to be out there being a blocker. He's going to be out there putting in the effort, being a leader. And, when you look at somebody like Taj Washington, like he doesn't have a ton of great size. Like he shouldn't be the guy that you look at and say like, yeah, he can go out and block dudes, but he puts his all into it and he sets an example for the younger guys and he sets a tone. And I think you need that kind of player who's not going to be your number one receiver, but when he's on the field, you know what you're going to get from him and he's going to give you that effort. And I think to highlight him when, we're not often calling out his name on CarCast. We're not often saying like, wow, what a great game from Taj Washington, but he's consistently been putting in those performances for USC. And in this offense, it is so easy to go unnoticed. Taj Washington, you are not unnoticed. You're just a little bit unsung.
Yeah, and he's led SC in receiving multiple times. Yeah. And this is a receiving core like we talked about before that has the Biletnikoff Award winner in it. And Mario Williams, who was a really highly rated recruit coming out of high school, going to Oklahoma and then transferring from Oklahoma to SC.
And the son of Jerry Rice.
Yeah, the son of Jerry Rice is just on the team. There's a guy named Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's really easy for Taj Washington to get lost in the shuffle there, but he's made sure that he is solidly that number 3 receiver. And we talked about it before. Who is going to be the number 2? I think the number 2 surely is Mario Williams, but who is the number 3? It could be any of. It could have been any of them, and I think it's solidly right now Taj Washington. Mm-hmm. You can, I guess, make a case for Brendan Rice, but like Taj has played such a huge role on this team thus far as an unsung hero that I think it counts. Let's go to the final one, the first half most valuable player, the MVP. No name for this, Roddy. It's just the MVP, the first half MVP. Drum roll, please. It could only be one person. Of course, it's Dennis Lynch, USC's kicker. No, but it could have been if he would have got the opportunity to kick a field goal against Utah and win it. He surely would have been up this on this list as well. No, the first half MVP, surely, without a doubt, unquestionably, is Caleb Williams at quarterback. Alicia, is there any doubt there that could have been anybody else?
It's got to be Caleb. He could have been the winner of half of the RoTies if we just wanted to fit him in there.
Yeah.
He could have owned the best unit. He could have owned the best newcomer, but we were saving him the best for last. He has been so exceptional as a quarterback, making plays with his arm, making plays with his legs, being smart. He's only had one turnover all season.
Yeah, I want to speak to that point.
I'll leave that to you, but just his poise, his playmaking ability, his improvisational ability. He is a next level quarterback that I see people comparing to Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think that's an unfair comparison. He is that level of talent, and we are still seeing youthful Caleb Williams. I cannot wait to continue to see him as he grows and matures as a quarterback, because he's already incredibly talented, and USC would not be 6-1 without him.
No, I don't think so at all. Credit to what this offense could be if he wasn't there. I don't think things would be. I don't think this is a losing team with Miller Moss, but Caleb Williams and his ability to avoid pressure is uncanny. Like it's insane what he's been able to do. The highlight reel plays that he's pulled off, the dipsy doodles in the backfield, and giving guys the noodle legs and all that stuff. Like it's crazy what he's done. And yeah, he has a little bit of Patrick Mahomes in him, where he makes decisions that in a vacuum are maybe bad decisions, maybe decisions that nobody else should be making. But when you have the skill set of Caleb Williams, when you have the skill set of Patrick Mahomes, you can do a jump pass from your own goal line and throw completely across the field. And
be on target.
Be on target and pick up a first down.
Yeah.
You can do little things where you have the ball flailing and you're making a guy move, and then you're going to pick up a first down on your feet. You can do those things when you're able to have his skill and ability and awareness. And the crazy thing is, with all those chances and risky plays that he's made, with all of that, he's only turned the ball over once. That was an interception when he threw into double coverage against ASU. He's had 2 interceptions called back for a penalty, but only turned over the ball once as the play stood. And this is the one that's even more mind-boggling to me. With as many times as he's carried the ball, which I just had the number here, 61 times. He's carried the ball 61 times. That includes sacks, of course. And he's yet to fumble the ball as a ball carrier.
Mm-hmm.
That is insane. There's been 3 times.
Reverse Sam Darnold.
So technically he's been credited with 3 fumbles. They were all fumbled snaps.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to count those on him as a ball carrier. And the crazy thing is, of those 3 fumbled snaps, 2 of them SC didn't even lose yards on.
Yeah.
Because Caleb Williams has the ability to do crazy things. So of 29 quarterbacks in America who have thrown 2 or fewer interceptions, Caleb Williams has the most pass attempts of anyone, 230, and the most touchdowns with 19. Only Georgia's Stetson Bennett has more passing yards of anyone who's thrown 2 or fewer interceptions. And Caleb Williams only has 52 fewer passing yards than Bennett. Bennett's touchdown interception ratio is 7-1. Caleb Williams is 19-1. Like, it's insane. The school record for interception rate is 1.1% from Cody Kessler back in 2014. He threw 5 picks and 452 attempts. Caleb Williams right now, which is 1 pick in 230 attempts, is 0.4% of his throws. So he's on pace to shatter that mark. Like, it is crazy what he's doing. Dave the Greater said, "Is there any Heisman talk?" I think there would be. I think
there is.
I think there is, but I think there would be more of it if SC won the game against Utah, which is probably unfair to him because the dude had an incredible game. I don't think SC loses because of Caleb Williams. 5 touchdowns. He did dirty things to that Utah defense that are probably illegal in the state of Utah.
But leading your team down and winning the game is definitely sort of Heisman moment stuff.
And the Heisman is always going to, be favored by the teams who are in playoff contention. And SC, I think, is not eliminated from playoff contention. But when you look at it right now, like CJ Stroud at Ohio State, Hendon Hooker at Tennessee, like those are the guys that are going to be in the top of those lists, along with the already guy who's won it from last year in Bryce Young at Alabama. So yes, I think he's surely going to be a Heisman contender as we go through here the next 5 games in the regular season, and potentially more. But nonetheless, he's putting together one of the greatest seasons in USC football history, and that should not be overlooked at all. He has been he's playing on the level of, I've seen comparisons to Sam Darnold. I'm sorry,
Way
but
ahead.
I think Caleb Williams is better than Sam Darnold at this point. I saw someone make the comparison that he's the best SC quarterback since Matt Leinart. This is not disrespectful to Matt Leinart, but I think Caleb Williams is doing things that Matt Leinart couldn't have dreamed of doing.
Yes.
So the game has evolved since then, surely. Matt Leinart was tremendous versus his peers, but the game has evolved, and Caleb Williams it's just better.
Well, when Sam Darnold was playing, we were talking about, like, is he the most talented USC quarterback that there's been because of the dynamic ability that he brought to the table?
Yeah.
And we might have debated that. I don't even, there's no debate to me. Caleb Williams is the most talented USC quarterback that there's ever been.
Yeah.
As a passer, his arm is ridiculous. He has running ability that the best passers in USC history, like you said, Matt Leinart couldn't dream of. Carson Palmer couldn't dream of. Like, it's just on another level. And the thing that I want to highlight the most is that, and this is the big comparison to me between Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold created a ton of things, but there was always a high risk factor with what Sam Darnold was doing. And there were a lot of throws that, oh man, he wishes he had that one back. I don't even know that I could count on one thumb the number of Caleb Williams wishes he has that throw back that I've seen this season. It's one. Yeah. It's and Michael in the chat said that the interception was so ridiculous it almost seemed like a heat check. Yeah, because it was a heat check. Like, it was just like, oh, I mean, everything else is going for me, so just gonna chuck this one up and see what happens. And the defense made him pay, but he has not. Like, that was literally the only bad decision, bad throw that we've seen from him this entire season. Like, to be able to go 7 games at that level it's stunning. It's stunning.
We haven't seen it before, and
it's why I look at it and say, like, Heisman contention. Yeah, I think that his circumstances are probably not conducive to winning the Heisman this year. You never know, because there's so much left in the season that things can change for guys like CJ Stroud. But I think Caleb is looking at a potential visit to New York in December. Yeah. And there's no doubt in my mind he'll be the Heisman favorite going into next season. And when I think about what USC can accomplish in the next 2 seasons, it's sort of off the charts for me, because I didn't expect Caleb Williams to be this good. Like, I knew he'd be very good. I didn't know that he would be the greatest quarterback in USC history already. And I'm trying not to be hyperbolic about it, but
I think there's caveats to that. I don't know if we can say he's the greatest quarterback in USC history.
Okay, most talented quarterback in USC history. Yeah, that's fair.
Delineation.
Because you still have to go out and achieve things, and that's
right.
What Matt Leinart did was he achieved what he in the moment. So we need to see what Caleb does. But if you put Caleb Williams in that Pac-12 title game and give him an opportunity to win, like, I'm betting on Caleb Williams,
and he's going to potentially play a top 10 UCLA team down the line. Yeah. The other thing for me about Caleb is the Oregon State game was not good.
Yeah,
it was a
weird game.
It was a really bad game from him. But he has responded, and more than anything, like we talked about it before, like when you look back at the games that he had last year that he struggled at, they were the ones against good defenses. And so I think it would be easy to sit here and come up with a narrative that, oh, well, Caleb Williams just isn't good in the big games. Like, isn't good against the good teams. Like, he's still got to prove that. Well, what he did at Utah, I think, absolutely flushes that down the toilet.
Yes.
Like, 5 TDs, no picks, 381 yards, and looked tremendous and did like incredible. The little floating pass down to Mario Williams, insane.
Bryce Eccles doesn't have a crown on the field though, so.
Oh yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get to the mailbag, shall we?
Before we move on from the RoTies, I'd like to address some comments in the chat about handing out RoTies to the Rot bots.
Yeah.
Guys, don't get greedy. This is the mid-season awards. End of the season, we'll give out RoTies to who sent us the longest email and who's the most meh RotBot and all that kind of stuff. Just be patient.
All the RotBots are my favorite. All of them. But let's go to the mailbag. And if you want to ask a question, be sure to join us here on YouTube by asking a question. Put the question before your question. We'll be sure to star these and go back to them. We did get an email that we want to start with from Tim in LA, who says, "Hey, Michael and Alicia, here are a bunch of random thoughts since Saturday. Sorry if it's super disjointed. It's a stream of consciousness. The 22 Forever tribute from Utah was awesome. The helmets look beautiful. Some things are bigger than sports, and it sucks that most of the time we're reminded of that because of tragedy. If you haven't seen it yet, go to Utah's Instagram to watch the game ball presentation to the families. I needed a moment to myself after that. How cool was it to see that there was zero quit in this team? You can teach technique and schematics all you want, but you can't teach not quitting. The RotBots know him as the angry giraffe or the giraffe tree. The announcers doubled him as the praying mantis, but whatever we're going to call him, Eric Gentry had me ready to run through a wall after hopping on the field to hype up the defense. Next bullet point. In the Holiday Bowl after the Hail Mary, USC had to defend a Nebraska Hail Mary to win it. In my mind, the Hail Mary prepared them for that moment. Hopefully, the misses in this game against Utah will have some redemptive value for the Trojans later on this season. Next one. Yes, the Pac-12 refs are atrocious, but have we ever had a ref go into the stands and reprimand a marching band like UNLV versus Air Force? That was something you don't see every day. I didn't see that.
I didn't see this. I need to go look this up.
That's insane. Tim also says, since you guys are hot chicken fans, if you're ever out in my neck of the woods in Baldwin Hills, you should check out Hotville Chicken. The owner is from the family that is credited with creating the hot chicken style back in the 30s. Hopefully you enjoy it. All the best. Hope to catch you guys and the other RotBots in the Fallout episode. Tim from LA. Thanks for the email, Tim. I love the stream of consciousness and all the bullet points. Yeah, I think you nailed it about the tribute that Utah had for their players. That was incredibly touching and all of that. And in hindsight, yeah, how are you going to lose to a team or how are you going to beat a team with two of their guys in their helmets? That's always going to be a tough situation.
Yeah.
To go back to the hot chicken stuff. Okay, there's things that
Michael's about to disappoint you, Tim.
We need to address something. So, yes, we love Dave's Hot Chicken. Also, when I went to Nashville a few years ago, I fell in love with Prince's, which Prince's in Nashville is like the OG place. You can go to Hattie B's, but Hattie B's is sort of like the new age hipster place, and Prince's is like the old school original hot chicken place. Probably what Tim is alluding to about creating the style back in the 30s, like that's Prince's. But here's the thing. I love Prince's. I dream of going back there and having it again. We like chicken. Alicia and I are we don't like hot chicken. This is, and I feel like we're just going to absolutely disappoint everybody here. We're the weirdos that order it with no spice.
Like chicken.
I
think that's the right way to point it out. Yes, we like hot chicken, but only if we can get it not hot. We're the people. Well, I'm the person because Michael, I don't know if you do ramen, but like who goes to like a ramen place and gets zero spice. We're the people who go to like. Well, I'm the person that goes to like get Indian curry and get like the lowest spice possible, and that's too spicy for me. So yes, we love hot chicken, plain, no spice or minimal spice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to we're so disappointing to them. I want to address the Eric Gentry thing because I think future RoTies will include an award as the Eric Gentry Memorial that dude's got dog in him award or something like that, because
Yeah.
that moment of Eric Gentry hopping out on one leg is simultaneously hilarious. Like 6'7" dude hopping out on one leg, but also just like run through a wall stuff. So yes, Eric Gentry is the dude, and I can't wait to see more of him.
Yeah. Ari Lopez says, "You're worried about food while the USC fan base wants a national championship. ¿Por qué no los dos?"
Yeah.
We can do both here. We can do both here.
Yeah.
Dave in Orange County sent us a message before the episode and said, "Going into the season, I was really looking forward to this offense throwing more to the tight ends and running backs out of the backfield. Can you think of a reason that has not occurred more? Would that make our offense more dynamic if we did?"
There's a balance there because, as we talked about, USC has a wide receiver core that you got to get the ball to and let a lot of those guys eat. I think that Lake McCree being injured has maybe taken away some of the incentive to get the tight ends really involved in the passing game. But we did see against Utah that they were willing to go to Josh Follow in the end zone. And I think I'd like to see more of that going forward. I also think that, and I do this to myself too, there's this memory of the great tight ends of USC past, like the Fred Davises of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, like, the Fred Davis doing what he did in 2007 was maybe not the best thing in the world for USC's offense, because if you are relying, before you judge,
I'm just curious where you're going.
If your tight end is like your number one guy, he's the number one target for you. That's very good for him. But where are your receivers? What are they doing? Like, what is going on with the rest of your passing offense? And the fact is that, like, USC has Jordan Addison, USC has Mario Williams, USC has Brendan Rice and Taj Washington and all those guys. And I would love to see the tight ends get involved more, but the way that they were involved in the Utah game is sort of more what I want. Now, did I see like tight ends up the seam in that game? No, I'm still waiting for that. But if you're targeting your tight ends near the end zone and scoring touchdowns, then I think you're sort of set up for success. So I'm not pushing the panic button on how much the tight ends have or haven't been used, or the running backs haven't been used in the running game.
Yeah.
Sorry, in the passing game, because there's so many other guys who need to eat in this offense, and the offense is still scoring points, and the offense is still doing their job. It's hard for me to argue that, like, Josh Follow should be a focal point when you have the other options. And I'm really happy for Josh Follow, and I love what goes on there. But, like, you want your tight end to be like your fifth option. So that's going to mean he's going to be your fifth option.
Yeah, like, so to go back to the Fred Davis thing, like, Fred Davis, I as much as, this is a Fred Davis stand pod for sure. Let's also remember that, like, USC's receiving core in 2007. Do you know who the leading pass catcher was as a receiver?
I don't even know.
I'm pretty sure it's Vidal Hazelton.
Yeah, someone in that mold.
Yeah, like, and so, like, it was the year after Dwayne Jarrett and Steve Smith left. There's the year after them, and it was the year before Damian Williams took over, because Damian Williams sat out 2007 because he was transferring from Arkansas. So, like, Fred Davis was USC's best option, and that's not to take anything away from him, because, like, his season was great because he was USC's best option to go to from Booty and Sanchez. Like, they needed to go to him because he was their best guy, their best weapon. When you look at all of the weapons that SC has, the tight ends aren't in the top 5 of those weapons. And that's not a knock on the tight ends. That's just a credit to the weapons that SC has, like you said. And then on top of that, like, I don't think the tight ends need to be overly productive. I think the important thing about the tight ends, they need to serve as a threat. And I think that what we saw from Josh Follow in the Utah game is going to pay dividends going forward, because And, it's not just him. Like Malcolm Epps has had 2 touchdowns. He scored against Washington State. He scored against ASU, or Fresno State. Sorry, Fresno State and Washington State. He scoring in those games, like that's 3 games in the last 4 games or whatever that SC has had a tight end score a touchdown. Like that is going to continue to open up passing lanes for the other guys in the red zone. That's what you want. You want those guys to be a valuable throw. The defense has to consider them as an option. Beyond that, in terms of production, when you have this much talent at receiver, I don't think that they need to be targeted a million times, just enough to be a weapon.
Yeah. So I was just looking up some of the. Patrick Turner was the leading receiving yards, and Vidal Hazeltine was the leading receiver. Behind
it was all
Fred
close.
Davis.
Like it was all
those
close. Guys had 50
the,
catches, right?
Yeah. And then the years before, 2006, 2005, when USC had Steve Smith and Dwayne Jarrett, the tight end was the 3rd leading receiver on those teams, but the tight end only had 300 yards receiving in those teams. Right now, USC's 3rd leading receiver through 7 games is Taj Washington, and he has 214 yards. So what I think you need to be looking at is how productive is your 3rd leading receiver, 4th leading receiver in not just wide receiver, but people pass catchers.
Yeah.
And if your 3rd or 4th guy, if they're up in the 500 yard range, then you're doing fine because your 3rd and 4th options are there. It's just the way that football has changed, and the way that sort of attacking a defense has changed. So yeah, I do want to see the tight ends, but also just imagine in your head that Brendan Rice is a tight end, and maybe we'll all feel better. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that could work. Brendan Rice, he'd be a tight end on my Madden.
In your Madden team, he would be your tight end.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go to some questions that we got here on the YouTube. Thylacine says, shouldn't we be rooting for Oregon the rest of the season to ensure that they get to the Pac-12 title game? They play both UCLA and Utah at home. 2 losses for both, assuming we beat UCLA. Yes. We talked about this in the Fallout episode, or the CarCast. I think it was the CarCast at the end of the CarCast, maybe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that you want to start learning Oregon's fight song, and pulling out your green and neon and pink and black and all their different colors, for sure. Because, mind you, I don't know. Oregon might be the best team in the conference. Like from the eye test, I think it's very difficult to sort of say SC, UCLA, Oregon, Utah. They're all so close. I think all those teams are surely worthy of being in consideration for the Pac-12 championship game. And they all are, right? But as it stands now, SC's best path is if Oregon does a wrecking job on UCLA and Utah to sort of avoid that 3-way tie, or the 3-way, SC beats UCLA, who beats Utah, who beats SC, and just goes around in a circle of suck. You don't want that. And Oregon, being the wrecking ball, I think absolutely would help.
In the Slack, a sort of scenario chart got posted by, I think it was Richard. And to be honest, most of the scenarios favor USC. Most of them do. The real thing here is just for USC to beat UCLA. Well, to win out and beat UCLA. If you do that, there's a very, very, very niche scenario where...
Well, I can go over the scenarios.
Okay, you could go over them. Yeah. Well, actually, no. Let's save that for Monday because we're going to do a look ahead to the rest of the season. We can get into the weeds on that one on Monday. But just suffice it to say that USC has to take care of its own business. Yes, Oregon beating Utah and UCLA takes some of the complication out of things, but when it comes down to it, all that really needs to happen is USC needs to win out and beat UCLA themselves. So pay attention to what Utah's doing, but we don't need to be starting prayer circles or anything like that yet. Let the season play out. There's a lot of football left to be played.
Yeah, I don't know Oregon's fights. I could hear it if you played it.
I'd be if you played it, yeah.
But it's not one of the iconic ones of know that everyone knows the name of it and all that stuff. Dave the Greater says, we seem to be able to recruit 4 and 5-star skill position guys. Why can't we recruit the same level of linemen? We seem to be happy getting a 3-star lineman. I really think that this is a difficult thing it's difficult to get 4-star linemen.
There are less of them.
There are just less of them. Those guys absolutely exist, and SC has struggled over the years to get them. You think of guys like Sean Ryan in SC's backyard who went to UCLA instead of SC. You think of the guys who ultimately ended up going to Oregon, like Penei Sewell, a guy who SC was in the mix for until the very end, right? Like there have been dudes that SC has absolutely missed on that were 4 stars in the West region that they could have gotten. There just ends up being fewer of them. And in terms of sheer numbers, there's always going to be a ton of 4-star skill position players. There just are. Like that's just how it is. I think SC being better nationally and truly getting back to the point where SC is quote unquote back is going to probably unlock a lot of the national guys. But even still, like SC, I wasn't in the off season. I did the math about SC's recruiting ability, and like even in the last 5 years, SC in terms of average star rating under Clay Helton SC was recruiting the offensive lineman at about the same clip that Pete Carroll was. The difference is that SC was able to develop them more too.
Yeah,
like
and that matters.
It's so it's not like Pete Carroll had a ton of 5-star offensive linemen either. Just because there's not that many of those guys. Those guys just don't exist that much.
And that's the reality is that it's just so much harder to evaluate the big men in the front, offensive linemen and defensive linemen. It's hard to tell what they can become. And that's why there are fewer like 5-star, 4-star of those positions. But that's also why it's much more important for you to take a few 3-stars and build them up, and take your 4-stars and make them great, and take your 5-stars and make them Hall of Famers. And USC hasn't really done that. USC's sort of 4-stars were hit and miss, and the ones that were like, you just think about like Elijah Vera Tucker is the best offensive lineman for the New York Jets right now. And he was the best offensive lineman for USC, but like USC was sort of clinging on him as like the great hope for that offensive line. Well, USC needed 4 Elijah Vera Tuckers.
Isn't this the irony though, that like we say that SC hasn't developed these guys, and yet Andrew Voorhees is someone who's getting first round draft grades, right? Like he was the offensive lineman of the offseason that PFF just couldn't stop raving about him, right?
Yeah.
On top of this, Elijah Vera Tucker is getting people in New York saying that he's a Hall of Fame talent.
Yeah.
Crazy. Austin Jackson was a first-round pick, mostly because he was a 5-star coming out of high school by some recruiting services. And like that was like he was drafted on that skill set that pre-existed. But
he's a good example of that, though.
Yeah, where SC could have gotten surely more of him, and
could have been an All-American.
Where SC needs to get better is making sure that the 4-stars that are there that they don't miss out on Sean Ryan and Penei Sewell, Jonah T, a guy who went to 2-time CAF champ Narbonne, and then ultimately looked like he was going to go to SC and then didn't.
Yeah.
And then he had eligibility issues and all that stuff afterwards. But like, if you are in the West and a 4-star and in SC's purview, you've got to get those guys. The Jackson Carmens of the world are always going to be extremely difficult because
you just want to be in the conversation for those.
Yeah, if you're a 5-star in Ohio, like it's going to be a crapshoot as it is. Jack says, how long do you think Lincoln Riley stays at SC? Is there a world where we get Cliff Kingsbury and he leaves for the NFL in the next couple of years?
That's always possible. I don't know. It's hard to tell with some of these guys. I have a feeling though that if he wanted to go to the NFL, like he could have gone. Like if there had been any sense that Lincoln Riley could be gotten by the NFL over the last 2 years, I think you absolutely know he would have gone before Cliff Kingsbury got a head coaching gig in the NFL. So
Yeah,
it's hard to say. Some guys aspire to it, some guys don't. We'll have to see. And the thing is that if he goes, then you just have to deal with it then, and you have to find your best hire then. Like, I don't know that you can. We don't even know what the coaching carousel will look like in 3 years.
This is the scary thing of caring about college football so much, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what always looms. And it doesn't help that every coach that's won a national championship at USC, with the exception of Howard Jones, has moved on to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is an issue. Could it happen before he wins a national championship at SC? Yes, it could certainly happen. And I don't think that would be out of the possibility. I mean, look at every coach. I think it was Jake Dickert from Washington State, like, said that there's nobody in the world that designs plays like Lincoln Riley. Like, and pro coaches go to Lincoln Riley to like look at his playbook and all that stuff. Like, that happened even when he was at Oklahoma. So, like, yes, that stuff is going to exist. I think it does help when you have guys like Matt Rule fail in the NFL. Mind you, Matt Rule and Lincoln Riley, I think people look at differently, but still, the college hotshot and Cliff Kingsbury failing in the NFL too, essentially, doesn't hurt, but also the more guys that fail, the more opportunity there is for people to move up to. So, yeah, take that when it happens, if it happens. Herman says, do you feel UCLA is the best team in the Pac-12? And do you feel SC can beat them when they played each other? Let's talk about that on Monday. Let's look ahead to where things stand on Monday. I think that right now I sort of lean that way, but like, yeah, we'll talk more about that in detail on Monday. Last question comes from Dave the Greater, who says, steak, rare, medium, medium well, or well?
The answer is it should never be more done than medium. Depending on where I am getting the steak, I will get medium rare. But I'm pretty happy with a medium usually.
I like my steak done well, as in like I like it cooked good. You know what I mean? But that usually means medium rare.
Yeah, good news, guys. Michael has a lot of bad food opinions, but his steak opinions are not. Well, I don't know. You have one bad steak opinion, but your steak cooking opinions are not bad.
It's
he's a filet mignon guy. He is not a fan of ribeye, which myself and Jake from What's Bruin Show look at him and go, "Are you a crazy person? Like, ribeye's the best."
Why am I crazy that I like meat? I don't like fat and bone.
That's where
and
the juiciness comes from.
It is juicy. Like, what are you talking about? Filet is juicy.
I miss Jocko's.
Me too. But no, burger, give me medium rare. Yeah, pink is where the flavor's in, for sure. Anyways, that's gonna wrap up the episode. We'll be back on Monday. Yeah, we'll be back Monday. And yes, we will go over talking about the rest of the season, look forward to the season, sort of project out the season as it goes. Probably not make predictions, but talk about what's in store for the remaining 5 games for USC and how the landscape has sort of changed for the Trojans going forward. We'll talk about the second quarter problem. You teased that in the last week's episode. I think it works best. Talk about that on Monday. So join us again Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, here on YouTube. And as always, over wherever you get your podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify as well. Leave us your reviews, like the stream, subscribe, and all of that. Glenn says, who wins the U.S. Grand Prix?
Max Verstappen.
I'm calling it here. It'll be Sergio Perez.
I like it.
Yeah.
Also, Glenn and Dave the Greater, the flavors in the fat. Yes, absolutely. Also, Thylacine, if you put a medium rare steak on top of a medium well steak, is it 1 steak or 2 steaks? It's 2 steaks. Yes.
That would be high stakes.
One of them would be, at least.
Yeah. All right. We're out of here until next time.
All right.
See ya.
See ya.